The Nanai language is spoken by the Nanai people in Siberia, and to a much smaller extent in China's Heilongjiang province, where it is known as Hezhe. The language has about 1,400 speakers out of 17,000 ethnic Nanai, but most are also fluent in Russian or Chinese, and mostly use one of those languages for communication. Nomenclature. In China, the language is referred to as Hezhe.The. The Nanai people variously refer to themselves as Narenio, Nabei, Nanai, Kilen, and Kai-Eden, the last being the source of the Chinese ethnonym Hezhe. Distribution. The language is distributed across several distantly located areas: Middle, Lower Amur dialects, the areas along the Amur River below Khabarovsk; Kurmi dialect, the area around the city of Khabarovsk, probably not Nanai or even southern Tungusic; Bakin dialect, Pozharsky district of Primorsky Krai; Sungari dialect, boundary areas of the Ushuri River in China. It is thought that in Russia, the Nanai language has been best preserved in the Nanai district of Khabarovsk Krai, because of the active Nanai-speaking community there, which has been active in working on the publication of books in Nanai, as well as textbooks on the language, and also because of the ethnic autonomous status of the Nanai district. According to Stoliarov's data, the worldwide Nanai population is 11,883, of whom 8,940 live in rural localities of Khabarovsk Krai. However, only 100 to 150 native speakers of the language remain there. The 2002 census recorded 12,194 people who claimed to speak the language, 90% in Khabarovsk Krai, 3.5% in Primorsky Krai, 1.3% in Sakhalin Oblast, and no more than 0.5% in any other area. Of those, only 49, almost all in Khabarovsk Krai, were not also bilingual in Russian. 3 ethnic Nanai villages remain, those being Dashuin, Ulika, and Dada, in the remaining populated areas. The proportion of Nanai among local residents is much smaller. Even in Russia, the situation for language preservation is not favorable. The carriers of language are scattered in different villages and often isolated from each other. The Nanai language continues to be used in the sphere of everyday contact among people older than 40. In their contact with people their age or younger, they prefer the Russian language, using Nanai and only for contact with elderly people aged 70 or older. On the whole, the Nanai language has been superseded by Russian in almost all spheres of communication. Drastic measures are required for language preservation. Scholars in China have traditionally presented less fine-grained dialect classifications, and identified only 2, Hezhe and Kilen, the former referring to all varieties of the language spoken in Russia. He conducted his studies in Jijingo, Bacha, and Sipai villages in Heilongjiang at the time of his survey in 1982. The youngest fluent speaker was 55, and the oldest 72. Historical dialect classifications. There are several classifications of Nanai dialects. Early classifications tended to be aerial and paid less attention to criteria for the differentiation of dialects. Lipskoy Valran's classification, which distinguishes 7 dialects, is one example of this. He distinguished the Sungari, Upper Amur, Ushuri, Urmi, Kur, Central Amur, and Lower Amur dialects. In the 1920s, the period of initial studies of the Nanai language, the area of settlement of the Nanai people was more extensive than at present. Many dialects, which had not yet been classified by researchers, later disappeared, and remain unnamed. The next period of studies did not begin until after a 20-year interruption at the end of the 1940s. By then, the number of dialects had grown, and some subsequent classifications distinguished as many as 10. Also, the distribution of the Nanai language had sharply narrowed. Many Lower Ama and Ashuri dialects remained unstudied. According to Sunnick's classification, which emphasizes morphological and phonetic features, Nanai language forms two groups, which are decomposed into a number of dialects. Upper Ama, Sakachi Alun, Nakan, Bolin, Dazhuan, Garan. Central Ama, Kurami, Begin, Right Bank Ama, Sungari, Ashuri. Avroran divided the language into three varieties, Sungari, Ama, and Kurami, further subdividing them into a number of dialects. The basic difference with Sunnick's classification concerns the Ama and Upper Ama groups. Avrovan considered Bolin and Dazhuan under Nakan, while separating Kurami as its own group, while Sunnick viewed Kurami as a dialect. Sem, in contrast, classified Nanai into Upper, Central, and Lower Ama groups, each divided into a number of dialects. He counted a total of 10 dialects. Upper Ama, Right Bank Ama, Sungari, Begin, Kurami. Central Ama, Sakachi Alun, Nakan, Dazhuan. Lower Ama, Bolin, Ekon, Goran. It should be noted that among the contemporary carriers of Nanai language, dialect leveling and mixing has occurred due to extensive population migrations and the system of teaching of Nanai language. Therefore it is difficult to differentiate the dialects in contemporary language data. Pedagogy. The Nanai language is taught in secondary schools in Russia, mainly in Nanai villages in Khabarovsk Krai. The duration of instruction and weekly contact hours vary, a standard curriculum used in 7 villages. Furthermore, in the villages of Belgard, Nizhny Kalby, and Verkhnaya Ekon, there is an experimental teaching program in Nanai language with a greater number of contact hours. Normally there are 1 to 2 contact hours per week. In different schools, the duration of instruction varies from 4 to 10 years, beginning from the first year. In the schools with the experimental program, the language is taught from years 1 through 9 with a larger number of contact hours. Textbooks on the Nanai language, fairy tales, and artistic literature are used in Nanai language teaching. Sometimes teachers took the initiative to use oral folklore as well. However, there is a shortage of teaching and auxiliary materials, as well as difficulty in motivating students. Nanai language textbooks follow the model of Russian language textbooks aimed at native speakers, rather than emphasizing instruction in the language itself and in the theoretical, practical grammar. This model is not adequate for the situation of heritage language preservation. Moreover, the existing language teaching materials are oriented predominantly towards the development of reading habits. However, the number of publications in the Nanai language does not exceed 1 to 10, mostly collections of folklore or artistic works of the historical biographical genre, publishing in limited print runs. Instruction in spoken language is not conducted sufficiently and is not reinforced by teaching aids. In China, the Nanai people use Chinese for writing. The number of speakers has been in continual decline for decades. By the 1980s, the use of the language was restricted to special situations and communication with family members. In an effort to reverse this decline, a textbook for Hetze schoolchildren discussing the Hetze language was published in 2005. Orthography. The first books in the Nanai language were printed by Russian Orthodox missionaries in the late 19th century in a Cyrillic orthography. In the 1920s-30s, after several false starts, the modern written form of the Nanai language was created by a team of Russian linguists led by Valentin Avroran. The Nanai language uses the exactly same as Russian alphabet. Sample text from a Bible translation published in 2002 is shown below. Phonology. Vowels and vowel harmony. The Nanai language has 7 phonemic vowels: I, U, Y, O, O, A, E. There are 12 allowed diphthongs: I, O, A, E, O, Iowa, I, E, I, O, U, U, A, U, E, U, O, Oi, Ya, Yi. There are also 2 allowed triphthongs: E, O, Y. Phonemic vowels change as follows based on surrounding consonants. Becomes I becomes after DZ, TSS. I becomes after per meter, NL, D. A glottal stop is inserted before I when it begins a syllable and proceeds. DZ, S, TC, CL, MN. May optionally become in non-initial syllables. A vowel in a final syllable is nasalized when it proceeds N. The following table summarizes the rules of vowel harmony. Consonants. As for consonants, there are 28 phonemic consonants. May optionally change as follows: per second. I become between 2 vowels, 2 in syllable final position, before in the following syllable. Dialects. Phonology of the various dialects of Nanai has been influenced by surrounding languages. Tolskaya specifically noted several phonological peculiarities of Bakin dialect which may indicate influence from Udaiga, including monophthongization of diphthongs, denasalization of nasal vowels, deletion of reduced final vowels, a panthetic vowel preventing consonant final words, and the deletion of intervocalic lexicon, and noted a variety of loanwords from Chinese in his survey, such as calendar from Chinese. A few also came from other languages, such as, almost certainly from Russian, though the exact route of transmission is not attested and it may have been re-borrowed from other neighboring languages rather than directly from Russian. There is also some vocabulary shared with Mongolian and the Turkic languages, such as dot. These 2 are likely loanwords, though proponents of the Altaic hypothesis may take these as evidence of a genetic relationship. Conversely, the Nanai language itself has also contributed some loanwords to the Udaiga language, supplanting Udaiga vocabulary from Nanai instead of Udaiga. From Nanai instead of Udaiga. From Nanai itself, a loanword from Chinese, which actually means list. A large degree of mutual assimilation of the 2 languages has been observed in the Bakin region. The Udaiga language itself only has 230 speakers left.